Howdy, I'm Jeep and Jason, and this lovely piece of equipment right here is the Ultimate Dana 44 from Spicer, and this, in my opinion, is the perfect front axle upgrade for the AutoEdits Jeep Wrangler. Should we install it? Come on along, let's do this. Yeah. All right, so there's a lot to be excited about when this big, awesome piece of kit shows up at your house. Oh. And I'm gonna show you that this is something that you could do yourself in your own garage. Give yourself a weekend maybe. I'm just gonna take my time. It's late in the afternoon. We're gonna get started today, and we'll just walk you through the steps. So these are most of the accessories that we'll be playing with in this install, and one of the things I really think is just the absolute, it's a no-brainer to go with the Dana crate axle system here, because first up, it's the most cost-effective by a couple $1,000s from the next comparable anything on the market for the strength and the components that you're getting. So not only do you get an axle housing with, we'll run through all the specific upgrades in a little bit, but there's dozens of things on that thing that make that better. But not only that, you get chromoly axle shafts. Now this is a huge thing. This is the single biggest upgrade to the Dana 44 front axle that I think that has saved me multiple times. A good solid chromoly axle shaft is great. These are the Dana Spicer heavy duty with the 1350 U-joints in here. This is worth the price of admission right here. Now here are some of the extra credit things that I went ahead and ordered since I was on the Spicer website. I went ahead and got some unit bearings. So these are the wheel hub bearings. As you can see, these fancy orange things over here. We're gonna go with the Reed racing knuckles here. Now, even if you're not entrenched in the off-road industry or off-road world, you kind of have heard of this, or you've seen the orange knuckles and know something serious about with these. And that's because these are the best, the strongest. And I'm going with that. So right now is the time I'm gonna do that. These are not only gonna offer me that peace of mind of just the knuckle being ridiculously strong, I'm gonna go high steer. So that's another thing that this will offer me. And I'll show you all the ups and downs about doing that at this point. Remember, my Jeep's only got a 3.5-inch lift so far. One of the things I wanted to quickly touch on is that the 44 crate axle kit, this kit comes complete with all of these things, gears, electronic locker, all that stuff. And it's designed to literally, so you can literally just take your stock knuckles and wheel bearings and all of those things and just plop them onto that axle housing and stuff that in there. So you could really make this really affordable. I mean, that's the bottom line. So let's get under and get the front end off and that old axle out. Now people wonder a bunch about how to lift the front of your Jeep with the pumpkin in, off center. There's a couple different trains of thoughts here. Obviously the strongest point is right under the pumpkin. I believe that even on these axles, and it's what I've been doing, I do it from right next to the pumpkin, right in the center of the vehicle. And I usually use a piece of wood just to kind of distribute the weight a little bit better. But, do what you feel most comfortable. This is what I've been doing and it works for me, so I'm gonna stick with it. So make sure that you have everything centered up and square. I have the parking brake set and the thing is in gear so I can go up. Now, since I'm in the garage, all we have to do at this particular moment is get the tires, the front tires off the ground, because we're gonna actually let all of this stuff droop to get this axle out of here. So what I'll do is I just make sure everything's stable here. I'll get my jack stands under the frames as a precaution. So now that we have this in place as a safety, I can go ahead and yank the tires off. And there's another thing I want to show you really quick. So here's a quick tip to help make your life easier. Anytime you're pulling suspension pieces apart or putting new things in on your vehicle, it's good to get a measurement now at ride height. So the Jeep is still supported on its own. I have jack stands under the frame just for safety, but it's not being supported by those yet. So I want to take a few measurements just so I can cycle the suspension before we put the springs back in into this position so I could actually get all of my settings and square the axle back in here. I'm kind of meticulous that way, and these are the little tips that'll help you if you get into trouble. I just got an instant message from somebody that was struggling with this. Okay, so now that we have our measurements taken, we'll go ahead and lower it down. Okay, our junk is officially drooped. Give the Jeep a good shake just to make sure. If it can't withstand this, you have no business being underneath it. So the removing of this axle is fairly simple. Now it's just unbolting anything that basically attaches that to the Jeep chassis. So it'll be all the steering has to come off, the panhard bar links, the brakes will come off. I'll put those on a bungee up over here. Now, if you notice, these are the stock knuckles that I painted red a while back, and that's not, you know, it was just because I had some extra red paint, and they're easier to clean once you paint them. The raw steel was a little bit harder, and I'm just weird that way. So that's all you see there. But you could literally just unbolt those, pop those off, and then you would pop those onto the new axle. Since we have the reed knuckles, we're gonna go ahead and just rebuild this from scratch. But that's what's on the agenda now. Cue the time lapse. All right, so that was a couple of hours of casual, kind of chilled out work to get this completely disassembled and off. I got the brakes stowed, everything kind of just stored over here, all of my arms off and out of the way. I may take the shocks out just so I don't bonk them or bend anything while I'm working in here, but that's it for tonight. I'm gonna just go ahead and have a few adult beverages and recreate, watch, maybe play a little Red Dead Redemption, and we'll see you guys in the morning for the comparison and all of the fun putting that inside there, right? Yeah, woohoo. There you go. Mission accomplished. Good night, we'll see you in the morning. Howdy. Ow. Okay, now it's time for one of my favorite things to do in these videos, and that's to do the comparison shopping right next to each other from the upgrade to the stock stuff. And it's not to put that stuff on blast, it's just to show. Now, and especially in this case, this is a really kind of a low-key exciting one, because even a few of my Jeeping off-road buddies were like, why are you putting the Ultimate 44? You have a Dana 44 in there, you're not really changing much. That's really, really wrong. It's surprising the difference here. And as I have been learning, 5 years with the Jeep now, what is best for me and my style of wheeling, this is covering, I mean, literally checking all the boxes for me. So let's go kind of toe to toe and show you a little bit. Like, they look very similar. This is going to bolt into the exact same spot. So buckle up, there's gonna be a lot of details coming up. Go ahead, I'm gonna give you a second to hit subscribe to the channel and bookmark this video, because there's gonna be a lot of data. I'm gonna give you the torque specs that I use and all of the ways and settings that I'm gonna slide this thing up in here and get it installed. So there's gonna be a lot of stuff going on here. Now, first up, let's do the comparison and why, even though this is a Dana 44, this is gonna provide the strength that I need. Now, over the years of wheeling with my stock Dana 44, now remember, this is the stock Rubicon axle. First off, one of the reasons why you go Rubicon when you buy a Jeep, and we're gonna cover that later, like a lot of people ask, well, now that you're replacing axles, are you still happy you went with the Rubicon? Yeah, 100%. E-lockers, e-sway bar, all of that stuff is relevant. 5 years worth of that. It has the raised pinion angle here. Now, this is designed for Jeeps getting more lift. As you start going up in lift, this becomes critical to keeping your front drive shaft in a proper operating angle. So this, we already had that here, but check this out. Now, this is the other thing. I kind of thought that these housings were the same, and all of the things we're gonna get into in a minute were the upgrades. This is a different housing. I'm really checking this out. A lot of the castings look similar, but there's beefier ribs, he said ribs, all over it. So all of these things, even though they're in the same spots, they're bigger. So this is actually a huge plus right here that I didn't even take into account. Now, obviously this is stuffed with Spicer gears. So that I love to have here. That peace of mind is nice. Now, let's go ahead and move on out from the axle housing and show you some of the things. So the tubes right here are 5/16 wall tubing. Now, some other manufacturers have 1/2 inch wall tubing. Great, that's actually cool. I like that. Do I need that? I don't know. The only thing that I've done on that axle that has required some upkeep or adapting to is that I've done the traditional, you put larger tires. This was never designed, this was designed to take whatever abuse you throw at it with 33s. We as Jeepers love big tires, so we put 37s, and that's when I did my damage to this thing. And I slightly bent them. Now let's get into the nitty gritty. All of the bracketry on the Ultimate Dana 44 is of, what is that, 1/4 inch thick steel plate. It's massive, it's beefy. Now this axle also has something that's really cool for us that have lifted our Jeeps. It has the track bar holes that you can adjust. So if you had still a stock height, or you can go right up to here, so you don't have to use your whatever kit has a lot of times a bolt-on thing to adjust the track bar. Built in. The actual plates that the control arms mount to, massive, huge difference. If all I was able to do with my driving style and what I was doing is just add that bend into that, this will solve all of that. And that's why I think this is a really, really solid upgrade for most of us Jeepers. And that's who I'm trying to reach out to now. The new guys and the guys that are gonna go to that next level. I think this is a really good option. Now the back is a whole different animal. That's why we're gonna save that for another video. So continuing on across the front of this thing, the C's. These are a big deal here. A lot of people gusset these and all that. I don't feel like I need to because these are much beefier, bigger units than what came on the stock one. So lots and lots of beefiness going on here, stepping up from that one to this one without adding a ton more weight to the front of my Jeep. Now that's really key to me. That's one of the things that in my natural Jeep progression I have learned. I like keeping the Jeep a little bit more nimble rather than just slathering a bunch of weight. Like I did that. You put armor, right? Body armor, skid plates, big tires, all of those things. So you're adding weight. I get it, but proportionately, I want to keep that weight down when I can. So throwing a 1 ton up here for something I'm rarely ever going to need that entire amount of massive metal up here doesn't make sense. Again, this is going to keep the Jeep handling and driving like what I'm expecting and used to, much more nimble. So that is the reason this is the glory shot. Time to slide this underneath there, and I'll show you some other fun things when we get under there. All right, so here's a quick little thing that happens, and this is just something that happens when you're working on your rig. When you get a chance like this, clean, catch up a little bit, do some inspection, and you know, I found something. While I was under here, here's a quick tip. Whenever you're doing anything with your Jeep, with your suspension, on any vehicle, you always want to loosen up all of the control arm bushings here, so that way you only want to final tighten those with the weight of the vehicle on them so that they're all in the general starting position of their intended use. So loosen those up. Those were tight and they would, for all intents and purposes, be fine, but this is one of the things that takes things to the next level on any of your mechanicking duties that you try to attempt. So while I was over here doing inspections and checking some stuff out, I found that this control arm was already kind of loose, and after some inspection, my Duraflex joint was blown out, and I know exactly when this happened. What was that? It was when I made a huge impact on the Baja 1000 race course. If you guys haven't watched that video, watch that. It's a long one, so grab a couple of beverages. But I hit a huge hole on this side of the Jeep with this front tire. I didn't even know this was blown out until I took this thing apart. The Jeep still drove fine. I've gone on wheeling trips since. That's insane to me. So went ahead and called my boy Eric, hooked me up. Let's go and I'll show you how to replace this thing. So I literally just took this socket right here. This is a 1.5 inch socket, and this hammer pulled the snap ring out with these little pliers here and just popped that sucker right out. We're gonna go ahead and put the new bushing right in. Thank you again, Eric. over there at Metal Cloak. Will and Eric have been my go-to guys anytime I call with questions. And so last night I called him, and these are here today. So yeah, that's pretty cool, right? So we'll just go ahead and just start stuffing this thing into here. Tab to get it down into place. Now that that's in place, I'm going to go ahead and use the socket and give it a little. And that's it. That's it. All right, so let's just go put this in. Face buddy. Face mush. Face mush. Whoa, that went right in. So it's all about persuasion. What I want to encourage is that if you take your time, use patience and your brains. I don't have that many, so if I can do this, pretty much anybody can. You can get this done without hurting yourself. Be safe on all the stuff that you can. You know, like I always say, double check your jack stands, you know, just be all of that cautious stuff. But so far, look at how easy these are going in. That just means that this other side's gonna fight me, right? Now I want to take a moment before we start stuffing all the goodness back into and onto the outside and assembling the knuckles. I want to share with you guys how to measure. This is where when you have aftermarket suspension and the blessing and curse of having all the adjustability. If you notice that this is the Metal Cloak Game Changer 3.5 that I put on here 4 years ago. It has adjustable arms, and the beauty of being able to do that is that you can now dial in your lifted Jeep to keep your geometry better and right and center your axles up, but it also can get you in trouble. I get that comment a lot of people that get lost in these measurements. So here's a quick tip on how to do that. To do the center. So do you remember when, before we took the old axle out, I measured ride height. And so right now I have these motorcycle straps, these ratchet straps, simulating ride height of the Jeep. With that known, what you want to do is you want to have your axle center, because this is a track bar style suspension. That means there's a bar that goes from here on the axle up to the other side of the frame, and then that bar helps keep the axle within a relative geometry. Now there's going to be, because that axle is fixed on a point on the frame, this is going to have some sort of arc to it. And the trick of getting this bar as parallel as possible, and this is why even though I only have a 3.5 inch lift, I have this going in the upper bolt and the track bar raise bolt here. That gives me this bars darn near parallel right here. So that means that you're only going to induce the upper part of that arc. The tricky part is if that's down here, you're going to get the axle as it goes up in the up travel, it'll swing out this way and then up. So now you just get that part of the arc. That's ideal or better. We have it at my pre-measurements were for about ride height. That's here. I have this bar centering the axle up pretty good right now between the frame rails. And that's just literally, you measure the inside of the frame rail here, and it changes per Jeep and per axle. And then you just measure a fixed point. And I just did the spring perch on that side, and then same thing from that frame rail to this spring perch right here, same thing. So that's how I centered it, adjusted my track bar, boom, we're centered. And so before we do any adjustments here, let me show you how to get the axle centered in the Jeep. Right here is literally a similar type of thing. You're gonna measure from a fixed point that is not bent, try to find something that hasn't been bashed on rocks, towards a similar point on the axle. And then after you get that, so like on this one, I was able to measure I use something that's gonna be kind of fixed, and that's the lower control arm mount. That's where I measured from this front crossbar to here, and likewise. And then after that, I was able to get my control arms dialed, and then both lower front control arms are 23.5 inches long. I'm gonna show you from this angle here. You can see the bump stop is slightly out of alignment here, but watch as we cycle through the suspension travel and we go up to bump. Now boom, bullseye for that. All right, coming in hot with our first knuckle. This is exciting. Make sure that you get your Reed Racing knuckle on the right side. And I'm gonna go ahead and just slide this into place. Now I'm gonna put this in before the coil springs, primarily because we want to check the, run away. We want to check the high steer clearance, see if I made a huge mistake. But we could just at least double check that. Now the Spicer kit comes with these little brake line wheel speed sensor holders. Use them. That's handy. You could have taken those off your old one, but I'm glad, since I'm leaving my old axle together. No, there's a good reason for that. I'm not sure anybody would want it, but that's the reason that I'm keeping it together, so it can go as a unit to somebody who wants it or deserves it. Brake sensor's on, that's on, upper lowers. Okay, so here's where some things kind of, let's get this tightened down. Now on the web, there's a few different torque specs for all this stuff. I'm gonna share with you the ones that I've found, but there's probably other options here. So I have this set to, right now, 75 foot-pounds, and it says to do the top one first and then the bottom one. So that's what I'm gonna do it to. We'll just do this from the extreme terrain. I'll put a link in my description to the torque specs I'm using. So that's 75 on the upper. We'll do it down here. So we'll get those both torqued to spec, and then you're gonna put your cotter key in there as well. All right, now it's time to slide some chromoly goodness inside there. The kit comes with a little dust shield here and these little plastic guides. This will help get us to bullseye into the inner seal without damaging it. So it just will help our aim. Getting it down in there. That's what she said. Come on now. Go to your home. Keep that out of the way. We'll go on there. Get our wheel speed sensor taken care of and line all this stuff up. And then get the bolts that come with it. I noticed a lot of videos where people are just using regular sockets and they strip them or round off the edges. It's because they're not regular bolts. They're a 12-point, and that looks like that. See that? And those fit a little bit, give you a little bit more positive connection on the bolt head. I guess the steering knuckle, I try to gauge stuff for the cost versus what it gives you. And do you need the Reed Racing knuckle? I don't think you need it. Do you want it for peace of mind? Yeah. For me, it's kind of like when I got my Tom Woods drive shafts. It's that little bit of having to just check this off the list of something that I got to worry about. Like I mentioned earlier, the web has multiple torque specs as to where you go. They all agree these are 75 foot-pounds, so that's what I'm going to do. Another thing to check right now is our lock-to-lock U-joint. So that's why Reed gives you a very healthy distance on these things. I can go full lock, no bind, full lock, no bind. We're good. So I'm digging that. And we'll deal with this guy once we put our shocks and coils and all that other stuff in a little bit. Let's get our axle nut on. And this goes to 100 foot-pounds. But for now, I'm just gonna, because I can't hold it right now, I'm gonna just buzz it in with this. That wraps up the heavy lifting for this side. I'm gonna go double that up, and then we'll come back in and stuff our coils in. All right, so I used the ratchet strap to just get this thing pulled over back to the center. Get that, look at that, like butter. I think I'm gonna get the shocks in, and then we'll set it on jack stands under its own weight on the axle. All right, so the Jeep feels really stable under its own weight on the axle, and my confidence is starting to build, as well as I think the Jeep is confident. It feels a little bit more confident now. So now it's time to put on some music. I got some Jack White going. I'm gonna go in, and it's time to now, before I slap brakes and tires on, to just torque everything. So just check every single nut and bolt. Some of the heavy hitter stuff, we'll do that first, since I got my torque wrench set up for the 125 foot-pounds of torques. Says so right on the wrench. So we'll do the lower control arms, and the track bar gets that. Whew. Strong like bull. Let's keep going. So what I'll do when I can is to just make sure that that's solid in place. I'll just get my wrench on there and then just give it a tap with a mallet. And that will pretty much lock that into place. I haven't really had a problem with those things coming off, so. I went to torque the bolts around the diff cover here to 30 foot-pounds, because that's what it says on that sheet. And my calibrated helper was telling me that this should be clicking about now, and it never clicked. And then when it finally clicked, it was just the bolt snapping off in my hand. So I drilled it out. I wanted to show you guys real quick, I guess, while we're here, multi-service how-to. This is one of these little Craftsman extractor bits. And so I'm just gonna go ahead, I got a good hole drilled in there. And so we're just gonna go ahead and jam this in there and see if this will pull this bolt out. Oh, okay. Oh, it's got a bite. Okay. Yeah. All right, so this is gonna be kind of cool to show off how the locker works. It's not really exciting, not a lot happens over there. I'm a big fan of the e-lockers. I have not, knock on wood, had have them fail on me. I know some people, everybody has a personal preference. I love having a switch on, off, no air compressor, no whatever. So here's the basic scenario of what we got going on here. This is a traditional open differential. So the center of that differential is open in the sense that this wheel will turn one direction. That other wheel, if you notice, look at the axle, is turning the opposite direction. The little solenoid is right up in here. This is the actual electronic locker mechanism. So watch this, I'll hit the locker. Front locker, engage. Now, as I spin this forward, it's literally turning the differential, the transfer case, everything. Oh, here. I got a little bit more leverage there. So now you can see everything is all moving in one direction, and then I just disconnect the locker or turn off the locker, disengage. And now I'll be able to spin this wheel once it disengages. There we go. And then once it disengages, all back open again. That way you get better turning, and this is all fun trail stuff to learn. So I may show you guys how to splice in the wiring harness in another video, because I'm so anxious to get this out on the road. But for now, all you would have to do is just take the plug. I'm going to show you here on this camera. This is the factory e-locker plug, and plug it in to this handy dandy connector. And then I'll secure these guys up out of the way just so we can get this thing on the road and just drive it. Oh, hey, there you are. Well, so today went kind of weird. Got up early, was first up in the alignment shop, went to go get a legit alignment on this thing, and got it done, watched the guy do it, shot a little video, drove the thing home, and this happened. Yeah, death wobble, like crazy. Not sure what's going on with that. So what I decided to do is I want to share with you guys the frustrations and the realness of this. You know, it's easy to just kind of figure it out and then button this up in the video, but here's what you do. Death wobble is a mysterious thing that happens to us Jeepers. The one other time I had it before was when the ball joint, the lower ball joint on the C's went bad on the steering knuckles, the stock ones, which is a normal wear item. Replaced them, solved it. It could be a lot of things. So what I'm gonna do to attack this head on, now, if you guys have been along for this, if you made it to this far in the video, thank you so much. One of the hardest things on some of these projects, you saw it, like broken bolts, that weird bad luck I have sometimes, you know, like you drop a wrench and it shoots across the garage. I mean, weird stuff like that. It's been kind of a battle like this. One of the hardest parts of wrenching sometimes is just literally slapping a smile back on your face, putting your head down and moving forward and just persevering through. So this is one of those moments. So here's the plan at this point. I've loosened up everything else up under here, and I'm gonna show you how I do what I call it a redneck alignment. This is not something I recommend, but it's what the next thing I'm gonna do to try. I honestly believe that as I was thinking about what I was watching at, I didn't get my normal guy at the alignment shop, and the way he put the plywood planks onto the wheels for the sensors, I don't think that they were on square. My normal guy really takes care on that, and so I don't know if that's it. It's easy to think about it now, but you just know this feeling right here on the way home in the death wobble is awful. So here's the basics of how I use my iChronometer to do just a quick and dirty alignment. It's nice to have some adjustable steering components. So I have the metal cloak heavy duty steering stuff. So I have adjusters on the drag link and the tie rod. So that makes this handy. So in theory, what I'm going for is if I align the front tires dead nuts by my iChronometer to the rear tires, I should have a neutral steer vehicle. And it's not the end solution, but we're gonna try it because that's just the next step. You just use your eye, and again, you sweep like this and look, and then you adjust the tie rod until that goes in and out right. Then I center up the steering wheel, adjusting the drag link, and then we're gonna go drive it. So that's where we're at right now. Let's see what happens. All right, this is for all the marbles right here. Let's see what we did. And you'll be along for the journey on really what it's like to sort out big projects on your Jeep. So there you go. Initial feel. Hey, let me just talk about that really quick. Just driving down the street and getting out here, the steering is much easier, lighter. Don't know if that's just not having a stabilizer on there or if it's the reed knuckles and changing all. We changed a lot. We threw the kitchen sink at this thing, so to speak. And so we have high steer. We have the upper mount on the track bar swap. You know, we swapped a lot, the whole front axle. So lots going on, but it's amazing. The Jeep just feels good. Now, running without a steering dampener, like right there would normally just trigger insane. All right, we just passed 40. Sorry to interrupt. 45. Yeah! No death wobble yet. I'm scared. If you can see me, I'm tense. That's scary if you've been through it. It's terrifying. So we seem to have solved the first speed barrier, the 40-mile-an-hour speed barrier. Let's just keep driving and I'll talk to you about how this thing feels so far. Really quite good, like, and that's what I expect from it. I expect it to feel kind of nimble for a Jeep, and that's, you know, a lot to expect from a 4x4 with solid axles, but it's what I want. It's what I'm building towards. So, wow, here we are, we're going 50. Oh, man, I can't tell you how happy I feel and relieved. I'm still nervous. Now, another thing that running without a stabilizer is that this is gonna be super honest. There is nothing in between us and the steering. So to be able to feel this right away, I can tell you, going to high steer, there's much less bump steer in this, and that's when you hit a bump because of the geometry. you feel that through the wheel. It's actually noticeably better. So we've done a ton of just feel-good stuff to the Jeep. Wow. So right away, the around town feel out of the park good. And that's part of the reason of going with the 44, the Ultimate 44 front. Stronger in the right spots, not overbuilt. Again, I'm not gonna say don't get 1 tons or 60s, 80s, whatever you want, whatever your budget affords and your peace of mind needs. So we have a choice right now. Do we go ahead, no steering dampener, and take it on the freeway? I'm a little scared, but yeah, let's send it. Okay. Highway speeds achieved. Everything seems pretty good. This is my scared face, but 5th gear, 65. Woo! All right, we did it. We got to start. Feels great. Yeah, here we go. I think we're in the ballpark. I will definitely take it and have it aligned again, but I'll go to my guy. But there you go. The garage alignment was the ticket. Boy, does this feel good. Right out of the garage, we sent it onto the freeway. Success, no death wobble. Driving around town now, I'm starting to get into the groove here. All of that stuff up there makes me feel better. I have a surprise. This Friday, I ordered a steering stabilizer from Icon, so I'll be doing that install hopefully on Friday or Saturday. That's next. All right, let's go find some dirt. For low second, see if we can keep our tire up on that little section there. Yeah, grabbing second gear. All right. That is no big deal, but it's just fun to put tires in the dirt, right? So there you have it, guys. That was a successful maneuver. We did it, we earned it, had to persevere through some stuff. Thank you guys for making it this far. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications, all the good things. And stay tuned, lots more to come. The rebuilding and the fine tuning of the Jeep is just getting started. Lots more fun stuff to come. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to enjoy your drive.